Tales of 1001 Nights. The Tale of the Three Apples That Bring Death and Doom. Channel of the owner of the scroll. It is said that the Caliph, Harun al-Rashid, was famous for his disguises, and for sneaking out of his palace at night to check on the conditions of the subjects and the rulers, so that he could return the grievances to their rightful owners, to ensure justice for the oppressed against the oppressors, and to take vengeance on the oppressors for the oppressed. It is reported that one night he went out with his minister, Jafar, and his bodyguard, Masrur, in disguise. They walked through the streets of the city of Baghdad and passed through its markets until they came across a beggar. They saw an elderly man carrying a net on his shoulder, a basket on his head, and a stick in his hand. His appearance suggested misery and poverty, and he was reciting poignant poetry in which he lamented his condition and poverty. The Caliph was astonished and said to his minister, Jafar, "Bring this old man to us so we can hear his story, for his condition and words indicate great poverty and need." So Jafar brought the old man and stood him before the Caliph, asking him, "What is your story, old man, and why do you walk in sorrow at this time of night?" The sheikh said, "I am a fisherman, my lord, and I have many children. I left my house for the sea this morning and kept casting my net. But Allah the Almighty has not granted me any sustenance to feed my children until now. Therefore, I have decided not to return home without any food." The Caliph replied, "Will you come back with us to the banks of the Tigris and cast your net into the water, and whatever you catch in the net, I will buy from you for 100 dinars, even if it's just a single fish?" The fisherman was delighted with this tempting offer and returned with them to the banks of the Tigris. He threw his net and waited a little, then pulled it in, finding it very heavy. He could not pull it out of the water until Jafar and Masrur assisted him. Everyone was astonished when they found a large chest locked in the net. The Caliph gave the fisherman 100 dinars as promised, and ordered his minister and executioner to take the chest to the palace. In the palace, the Caliph ordered the chest to be opened, and when Jafar and Masrur opened it, they found a slain girl inside, her face glowing as if it were the full moon on a perfect night. The Caliph was moved, and tears flowed down his face in sorrow for the slain girl. He then yelled at his minister, Jafar, "We must take vengeance for this girl from whoever killed her. Go and search for the murderer of this girl, so I can kill him for her death, or else I will kill you in his place." Jafar said, "I hear and obey, O Commander of the Faithful. Just give me a grace period of 3 days, so that I can search for the murderer and bring him to you." The Caliph replied, "I have granted you 3 days." Jafar the minister left the Caliph's palace, troubled and unsure of how to deal with this calamity that had befallen him. He thought to himself, "How can I know the murderer of this girl so I can bring him to him? If I bring him someone else, he will order his execution, and I will bear the blame for it." The minister returned home and spent 3 days there, not knowing how to find the murderer, until the grace period set by the Caliph ended. On the 4th day, the Caliph sent for him. When he stood before the Caliph asked him, "Where is the murderer of the girl, O Jafar?" Jafar replied, "O Commander of the Faithful, do I possess knowledge of the unseen to know the murderer?" When the Caliph heard that, he became extremely furious and ordered for him to be crucified. Jafar was at the gate of the palace, and he ordered the heralds to proclaim in the streets of Baghdad, "Whoever wants to witness the execution of Minister Jafar al-Barmaki, let him come out to watch." The people of Baghdad came out from their neighborhoods to observe the execution of the minister. The Caliph's guards were preparing for the execution, waiting for permission from the Caliph to begin. While they were in this situation, a young man appeared, pushing through the crowd, until he reached Jafar, and said to him, "O minister, I am the murderer of the girl you found in the chest by the Tigris River." When Jafar heard the young man's words, he was filled with great joy at the prospect of saving himself from death. While they were in this state, Jafar noticed an elderly man making his way through the crowd to reach him. Then he shouted, "O minister, do not believe this young man's words. I am the murderer of the girl you are searching for." The young man tried to deny the accusation against the old man, insisting that he was the one who killed the girl, while the old man insisted that he was the murderer. Thus, each one of them tried to shift the blame onto the other, desperately asking the minister to expedite the execution order against themselves. When Jafar saw this, he took both the young man and the old man and headed to the caliph's palace. He said to him, "I have brought you two individuals, each claiming to be the murderer of the girl." The caliph looked at the young man and the old man and asked them, "Which of you killed the girl?" Both the young man and the old man insisted that they were the ones who had killed the girl, and that the other was innocent. When the caliph saw the insistence of each one, he said to his minister, "Take both of them and order the executioner, Masrur, to carry out the death sentence on them." The young man declared sincerely, "I swear by him who raised the sky without pillars and spread the earth on the waters, I am the one who killed the girl." He began to describe the girl and her clothes, as well as the things that were found with her inside the chest. The caliph became convinced that the young man was indeed her killer and asked, "But why did you kill her?" The young man then recounted his story with the slain girl, stating to the caliph that she was his wife and the daughter of his uncle, and that they had been blessed with 3 children. He explained that she had fallen seriously ill a month ago, and he had brought doctors to treat her until she recovered. After her recovery, she expressed a desire to eat apples. He searched for apples in the market and in the orchards, but he could not find a single apple to buy for her. One of the fruit vendors advised him to go to the palace garden of the caliph in Baghdad, as apples were only available at this time of year in the caliph's palace, which was located in the city of Basra. Since the young man was from Baghdad, he traveled to the city of Basra and visited the palace garden of the caliph there. He bought 3 apples for 3 gold dinars and then carried them back to his wife. When he arrived, he found that her fever had intensified and had rendered her unconscious. When he gave her the apples, she showed no interest in them and left them by her side. The young man continued his story, saying, "I stayed by my wife's side for 10 days until she recovered from her illness. Then I left the house heading to my shop to resume my trade. One day, while I was sitting in front of my shop, a black servant passed by, playing with an apple, which caught my attention. I asked him, 'Where did you buy that apple? I want to buy one like it.' The servant laughed and replied, 'I didn't buy it. I was traveling, and when I returned from my journey, I went to my beloved and found her sick. She had 3 apples and told me that her husband traveled to Basra and bought them for 3 gold dinars. I took one of those apples from her." The young man paused, lost in thought. The caliph then asked him what happened next. The young man resumed his story, saying, "When I heard the servant's words, the world went dark before me, and I closed. Then I realized the meaning of the servant's words, and I rushed to her and killed her. I then put her in this chest and threw it into the Tigris River where you found it. When I returned home, I found my eldest son crying. He did not know that I had killed his mother. I asked him why he was crying, and he said, 'I took one of the 3 apples that were with my mother and went out to the street to play with my friends. A black servant passed by and snatched it from me, asking, "Where did you get this apple?" I told him, "My father traveled to Basra and bought 3 apples for my sick mother for 3 dinars. I begged him to give it back to me, but he took it and left. I'm afraid my mother will hit me." The young man's tears flowed abundantly as he continued speaking. When I heard my son's words, I knew that the servant had lied to me, and that I had wrongfully killed my cousin's daughter. I sat weeping over her death with intense sorrow until my uncle came and learned what had happened. He sat next to me, crying over the loss of his daughter, and I kept lamenting my act of killing her. Then I learned that Minister Jafar would be killed because of me unjustly, so I hastened to come here, begging you, O Caliph, to expedite my execution. When the Caliph heard this, I want you to bring me that wicked servant so I can order his execution. If you do not bring him, I will kill you in his place. You have a deadline of 3 days. Jafar left the Caliph's palace, not knowing what to do about this new calamity that had struck him like a lightning bolt. He sat in his home, entrusting his affair to Allah, hoping that he would save him this time, as he had saved him the first time. Thus, the 3 days passed without Jafar finding any trace of the servant. On the 4th day, a messenger from the Caliph came to summon him to prepare for his death, since he had not captured the servant. Jafar stood up to bid farewell to his family, one by one. When he leaned down to kiss his little daughter, he found an apple in her pocket. He asked her in astonishment, "Where did you get this apple?" She told him that she had bought it for 2 dinars from their servant, Rayhan. Jafar seized the opportunity and brought in the servant. He asked him about the source of the apple, and Rayhan recounted how he had snatched the apple from the child and how the child had cried, telling the whole story of the 3 apples. Jafar realized that the servant Rayhan was the one he was looking for, so he led him to Caliph Harun al-Rashid's palace to receive his due punishment. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and activate the bell icon to receive all the latest updates. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up and share it.